I have some friends who will always contend that music and politics don't mix. That when musicians start getting political, it all gets far too preachy and self-righteous and boring. This is horse shit. Politics is a part of our everyday lives, whether we like it or not, and the issues it creates, the way it affects us, gives rise to feelings. Music is about the expression of ideas and emotion through sound. So why shouldn't music engage with politics, with ideas, with beliefs? We read books about politics. We see artists make political works, statements. We watch films and TV that engage us in political dialogue. So why should music be any different? Hi, Darren here. Yeah, here today are 10 political songs. These aren't necessarily, protest songs, which is where I think most people get their preconceptions about music and politics not mixing. But all of these are songs that engage with political or ideological concepts, either directly or through some kind of story or analogy. And as usual, these are completely unranked. They're mostly drawn from, alternative or left field artists, maybe not all of them. And they're purely personal choices made with the intent of, highlighting some less celebrated or maybe underappreciated songs and artists. And as an extra, because I do normally do these as lists of 20 and not 10, I will quickly drop in an alternative for each of these songs, which, addresses the same issue as the main selection, but maybe, in a different way or takes a slightly different perspective. Yeah, so that means you are getting 20 songs anyway. I should say as well, I'll probably be talking more about the politics and the kind of lyrical content, the kind of lyrical intent, if you like, than the music itself today, because I think that really kind of works for these songs. Okay, first up, I've got Merchandise by Fugazi from their 1990 album, Repeater. Yeah, so this song is really about, capitalism and consumerism. It's about personal choice being the driver of, returning power to the individual. Yeah, and the famous payoff line of this song is, of course, "You are not what you own." It was very famously adopted for a bootleg Fugazi t-shirt because the band, they never made their own merchandise in that way. Yeah, very defiant song. They sing, "We owe you nothing. You have no control." I think in the current climate with musicians finding it very hard to make a living without merchandise, this is probably quite a timely song. Yeah, my alternative choice for this slot would be "We Are All Prostitutes" by the pop group. This is from their 1980 album, For How Much Longer Do We Tolerate Mass Murder? Yeah, it looks at the same idea, the idea that we're all intertwined, capitalism, consumerism. But this one's less about defiance and more about, what the pop group saw as our lazy kind of complicity in the structures that we have allowed to come and dominate our way of life. And second on my list, and this one kind of looks at American foreign policy, I've got Welcome to the Occupation by R.E.M. This one's taken from their 1987 IRS album, Document. And I think it's one of their most direct political statements. Yeah, this really addresses the issue of, the way that US foreign policy and involvement in Central South American politics use kind of, often very illicit and undemocratic means. Lots of, shadowy interventions there. I think Stipe's lyrics here, they're still very shadowy and quite lyrical, but they are much more direct and much more angry. Yeah, this one's easily a top 10 REM track for me. I think it's definitely one of the greatest songs they released in that kind of early period before they joined Warner's. And my alternative here would be Bullet the Blue Sky by U2 from their, huge Joshua Tree album from the same year as Document. And again, this is casting high over America's influence in Central America again. But, this is, big, old, bombastic Bono at his best. And quite honestly, this is probably the last time I seriously listened to U2 in any real sense. But I think despite the kind of, the bigness of it, the importance of it, it's very, very forceful and it still has some very arresting imagery and sounds in it. Okay, third up, we're kind of looking at political figureheads here. I've got Margaret's Injection by The Kitchens of Distinction. Now, this one comes from their 1989 Elephantine EP. Yeah, quite an odd one, this. This was a rare instance, I think, of a shoegaze or a dream pop act that actually, had something to say. The Margaret they're referring to, of course, is Margaret Thatcher, the embodiment of that kind of cold-hearted conservatism of the 1980s. And in this song, Patrick imagines giving her a lethal dose, giving her a lethal injection, and watching as she slips away in his eyes, unloved, hated. Yeah, it's a pretty cold conceit in a lot of ways, but it is one born entirely of, the human consequences of what was some pretty horrible politics. And my alternative one in this position, yeah, a bit more of a light-hearted one. I've got the Ramones with Bonzo Goes to Bitburg. Yeah, you can't have Thatcher without having Reagan. This was literally, liberal Joey versus conservative Johnny in the Ramones. Yeah, Joey really kind of, skewering Ronnie and Nancy over a state visit that they made to West Germany. Yeah, this one's a little more lighthearted, I think. And if anything, it's more about the inter-band politics of the Ramones of the time. So fourth up, I've got Banana Republic by the Boomtown Rats. Yeah, this is from the 1981 album Mondo Bongo. And yeah, this is all about, the idea of the establishment, that deadly inertia of, a small c conservative state, where certain groups hold a lot of sway over society and nothing ever seems to change. That kind of, it's not what you know, it's who you know attitude. Yeah, the Rats had a pretty big run. They were certainly big in the UK, where they had a couple of #1 records. And I think this was kind of Bob Geldof's realization after coming back to Ireland, after having been away for a while and just seeing the same old faces, the same old things happening, nothing ever changing. Black and blue uniforms, police and priests. And my alternative here, holding up a mirror, if you like, to the UK state of, the 80s, I've got Heartland by The from their 1986 album Infected. Yeah, the 80s UK under conservative rule. Matt Johnson sings, "This is the land where nothing changes, the land of red buses and blue-blooded babies." Yeah, he covers, the destruction of the welfare state, the erosion of the fabric of society, whilst, the people in the right positions are, quite handsomely rewarded. A couple here about the society reflecting, political choices made at the top. Yeah, at number 5 on this list, I've got Cellophane by That Petrol Emotion. Yeah, this was the single from their 1988 album, End of the Millennium Psychosis Blues. And the band, if you're not aware of them, features Sean and Damien O'Neill, formerly of the Undertones. The band were always, fairly political in their writing, but for the most part, they steered clear of the troubles, the problems afflicting their native Northern Ireland. That was until this song, Cellophane. Yeah, it's a very pretty, very lilting, folky sounding number that picks apart all the historic and political and societal neglect that leads people into acts of terrorism and extremism. Yeah, the killer line in this song is, "I can only find the murder machine." They see people's choices as having been eroded to the point where violence was the only thing that they could resort to. This was in no way, a green light from That Petrol Emotion to terrorist behavior. But they did just want to look squarely in the face of these issues. I think they said that you really need to understand these problems, and that's what Cellophane sets out to do. And my alternative number 5, it's a song I've talked about before, I think. It's Ghost Town by The Specials. There's very little else I can add to this one, really. Yeah, it just perfectly reflects that very early 80s period when unemployment, neglect, underinvestment, the kind of the urban decay of the time just spilled over into riots and unrest. And The Specials just captured the feel of that time absolutely perfectly. At number 6, I've got a song which is kind of about the social contract, which is, the idea that people, accept their roles in society as the price, for the freedom and the order and the respect that they gain from being governed well. Yeah, and the song I've chosen here is Between the Wars by Billy Bragg. Yeah, this was released in 1985 during the miners' strike of that period, when I feel that that social contract was under attack. The song itself, it pitches, war and peace as choices, as political choices, and how regular working people, can be called upon to fight, to sacrifice, as long as they're treated with dignity and respect during peacetime. The really telling line, I think, in this song is where Billy sings, "Sweet moderation, heart of this nation, desert us not, we are between the wars." Yeah, I think this one has a very good shot at being Billy Bragg's greatest ever song. And for my alternative, yeah, here's a real switch of pace. This is a far cooler, more analytical look at, that same thing, the cycles of war and peace, prosperity and austerity. Yeah, I've chosen Ping Pong by Stereolab. Yeah, much more of a kind of political science philosophy take on the issues that Billy was talking about. But yeah, it talks about this boom bust recovery cycle as being, you know, an innate feature of capitalism, and we either live with it or we change it. Staying with war a little for the seventh choice on my list, I've got Shipbuilding by Robert Wyatt. Yeah, this song was written and released at the time of the Falklands War of 1982. Yeah, Elvis Costello wrote the song. And the lyrics, you know, they pitch the boom times at a provincial shipyard, you know, jobs for the boys, against the fact that a war is going on, and some of the very same boys will be sent away on these ships and won't be coming home. You know, they're the collateral damage. They're the cost of war. Yeah, this song is a stunningly moving and subtle depiction of the fragility of, you know, our well-being as a society in the time of war. We are nurtured by it in some respects, but destroyed by it in others. And it really highlights the discord that balance requires. Yeah, there's that tension that is there. In the lyric, Robert Wyatt sings, somebody said that someone got filled in for saying that people get killed in the results of their shipbuilding. Yeah, this is just stunning songwriting and an absolute tour de force vocal performance from Robert Wyatt. And my alternative for this, the seventh slot, would be Army Dreamers by Kate Bush. Yeah, this is from her Never Forever album of 1980, and it was a single release. And yeah, like Shipbuilding, it kind of shows the army as a way out for, you know, the poorer, maybe the less educated, and the costs to them, the great costs to them of taking that option. Yeah, Kate sings, what could he do? Should have been a politician, but he never had an education. Yeah, as Kate sings, oh, what a waste. And next, yeah, following up on that idea of, you know, people as collateral, as, you know, expendable, I've got Tom York's song, Harrow Down Hill. The song kind of tells the story of David Kelly, who was a weapons expert, an analyst, a civil servant who took his own life on the Harrow Down Hill of the title after being kind of hung out to dry by the government over claims used to justify their invasion of Iraq at the turn of the millennium. Yeah, the pressure and the media scrutiny of his role in, you know, the dodgy dossier, as it was called, which was drafted to help bolster the case for war, led to David taking his own life. Yeah, there was huge public opposition at the time to the UK's involvement in the Iraq War, and David just came to be seen as just a part of this, you know, this collateral damage that, you know, the Blair Labour government was prepared to accept in their push to join, you know, the US-led invasion. And for my alternative here, yeah, a bit of a classic one, I've got Only a Pawn in the Game by Bob Dylan. Yeah, this is from The Times They Are Changing, 1964. Yeah, it is a bit of a classic, a bit outside of where I'd normally choose, but I mean, the title really conveys it all. You know, Dylan kind of ascends the levels of the hierarchies and the ideologies, if you like, that are in place that led to the death of Medgar Evers, a black civil rights activist, shot and killed by a segregationist in 1963. Yeah, and taken in this context, to Dylan, yeah, even the shooter himself was a pawn in a wider game that stretched back over generations. So on my ninth spot, I've got a couple of songs which kind of deal with the whole issue of imperialism. Yeah, my main selection is The Glorious Land by PJ Harvey from her 2011 album, Let England Shake. Yeah, the whole album kind of covers war throughout the 20th century, right up to the present day, you know, and it references the trenches of World War I, right up to modern day Afghanistan. And this song, The Glorious Land, it kind of shows, you know, imperialism as the tool of this kind of the war industry, you know, the weapons complex, security contractors, that kind of thing. And it likens, you know, the invasion and, you know, pacification of a country, of regime change to agriculture. You know, Polly sings about tanks and feet being used to plough the land instead of iron ploughs, and that the fruit of this agriculture is orphan children or deformed children. Yeah, a very lyrical and very powerful song. And as my alternative in the ninth slot, I've got Listening Wind by Talking Heads from their 1980 album, Remain in Light. Yeah, a quick one here, and a bit of an outlier on the album it came from. This one kind of shows, if you like, the flip side of, you know, the point of view of that imperialist aggressor. It takes on the character of Mojik, you know, an insurgent, an extremist, a terrorist maybe, a freedom fighter to other people maybe. But but it's a very spooky, odd, kind of quasi-religious song almost. You don't really get the feel of sides being taken here. And finally, in the 10th spot on this list, dealing with the idea of kind of immigration and borders, I guess. Yeah, my main selection at number 10 is Borderline by Spiral Stairs. Yeah, this one's taken from his 2019 album, We Wanna Be Hypnotized. And I think this is great because it does show that not all political songs have to be kind of really heavy and very labored. It feels like an almost, joyous deconstruction of just the stupidity and the kind of brutality of Trump's wall along the southern US border with Mexico. And when I say, joyous, it's got this very, celebratory feel about it. The atmosphere is very odd. It's got a feel of The Clash in some ways, something like Rock the Casbah, despite the darkness of the subject matter. Yeah, he sings, they'll build a wall, then we will climb. They'll make it tall, well, I got time. They'll make it higher on someone's dime. We stand in line at the borderline. And as an alternative at number 10, I've got Danny Nedelko by Idols, taken from their 2018 album, Joy as an Act of Resistance. Yeah, like Borderline, equally celebratory in feel, I think. My blood brother is an immigrant is the opening line. And the song goes on to run through a litany of immigrant archetypes, from the famous ones like Freddie Mercury and Mo Farah to just, your local Polish butcher or a Nigerian mother of three. And sonically, this one is kind of part, rattly kind of post-punk and part kind of oi style, almost football chant. Yeah, this song to me feels like a very necessary anthem to counter all the bigotry and racist undercurrents that have infected UK society and UK politics following the disastrous Brexit vote of 2016. And there you go. That's my list of 20. Posing has a list of 10. I gotcha. There were some very big songs I purposely left out here. There's some 60s classics like Fortunate Son, Creedence Clearwater Revival, or Ohio by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Some hip-hop could have made it in here. Public Enemy's Fight the Power, or The Message by Grandmaster Flash and Melly Mel. A few others that could have got a nod would have been something like Beds of Burning by Midnight Oil, about the treatment of the Aboriginal people. UB40, feels strange thinking of UB40 as such a political act, but they were vocally much more political in their early days. And a song like 1 in 10, about the employment and societal issues of, again, early 80s conservative Britain, still sounds great. But anyway, I'll leave it there. A slight bit of a change of pace, I think, for this episode. But if you did like it, please show your appreciation in the normal way, because it really does help with the algorithm. And if you'd like to comment on anything I've talked about, please engage below. I'll be primed and ready to answer. And as usual, thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you want to stay up to date with what I'm releasing. And in the meantime, take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.